go.
Welcome to the show. You are one-on-one with Wes the Sports Guy here on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. And you can also find me online all the time at westhesportsguy.com if you want to get all the social media links, recaps, weekly reviews, previews, all that good stuff. It's right there for you at westhesportsguy.com. Cannot stress it enough to bookmark that site. Again, it is westhesportsguy.com. Getting right into it, a little bit of a breaking news story that has happened in the last 12 hours, per se. Late last night, Nolan Arenado of the Colorado Rockies, the third baseman extraordinaire, all-time perennial Gold Glover in Major League history. I mean, the guy's got plenty of Gold Gloves to last a lifetime, you could say, but also is an RBI machine, one of the best hitters in the game, in my opinion, but also just consistently, run production has always been there for him. He's always been getting knocked for playing in Colorado. I don't hold that against him, but he's still one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Again, my opinion. You don't have to agree with that. If you do, leave a comment, leave a like on this video, and make sure you subscribe and hit that bell while you're at it, while you're here. But moving on, Nolan Arenado broke last night that Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic and also Major League Baseball MLB Network, MLB.com, he broke the story saying that Nolan Arenado was going to get traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. It is not an official, nor is it a done deal yet, although it is looking more and more likely that it will happen. The reason why it's not an immediate done deal is because there's reportedly $50 million at stake that's going to go from Colorado to St. Louis to help basically pay off a little bit of Arenado's contract from Colorado's perspective, but also there's some deferral payments with his contract that has to get worked out with the union, all that stuff that I don't want to bore you with. But to look at it from this perspective, Nolan Arenado going to a perennial contender in the St. Louis Cardinals is definitely a game changer, especially in the NL Central as we get closer and closer to spring training. As you can see with the theme of this week's episode, it is spring training themed, minus the stuff that you see on the wall. That's there for the foreseeable future. So ignore that, but it is going to be a spring training theme going into this episode. Super Bowl obviously is going to be next week. I'll get more into that as we get closer and closer to that time frame. But to finish off with the Nolan Arenado story, it's a long time coming because the relationship's been broken. Even after Arenado signed the massive extension, Colorado didn't do anything that offseason when he signed the extension to improve the club, when they looked like they were going to be contenders once again with him at the helm. Hasn't been the case since that extension, and it's been just noise and grumblings really about Arenado and his future in Colorado. So it's good for both sides. It's kind of, you could say, messed up on Colorado's end to do what they did. But, hey, to each its own. Arenado's going to get paid regardless. But the Cardinals, looks like they don't have to give up a whole lot other than just to take on a large chunk of Arenado's contract that he has left over. They're not giving up much, it seems, to get Arenado to be on their club, which is desperately needed for a Cardinals lineup that was struggling last year, albeit in a 60-game season. This week, I propose a question with the quarterback carousel coming up in the NFL offseason. Mainly, I'm focusing on two quarterbacks right now. Who would you rather have as a quarterback on your team? Matthew Stafford, of the formerly of the Detroit Lions, or Deshaun Watson, who has now publicly acknowledged that he is requesting a trade from the Houston Texans. So, cases are this. Matthew Stafford obviously has been in the league a lot longer. He has 12 seasons at the helm as quarterback of the Detroit Lions. Obviously, the stats are going to be inflated being in the league for 12 seasons. He has over 45,000 passing yards. That's quite a number when you look at it also from the Detroit Lions quarterback perspective. He's definitely number one in that category for their franchise all time. 282 touchdown passes, 144 interceptions. And he does have 3 playoff appearances under his belt with the Detroit Lions. That's kind of shocking also. It's the Detroit Lions. He made it to 3 playoffs. You got to wonder, how did that happen? Well, it did. Wild card nonetheless. No division titles, and they did not win a playoff game. Thus, if you don't know, Detroit, I think, has the longest losing streak in NFL history when it comes to not having a playoff win. It's been a long time. I think it's probably close to 50, if not 60 years, but you can check me on that. Leave a comment, leave a like below if you agree with that sentiment. Matthew Stafford has the experience. He does have a bit of injury history as well, being not having a great offensive line in front of him for the Detroit Lions, and also just not much of a running game. He's really never had a running game. He didn't have anybody to rely upon to hand the ball off to for practically all of his career in Detroit. He's had some great passing receivers, Calvin Johnson, Megatron being one of them, who's looking like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. When the announcements come towards the Super Bowl, he's got to be in. I mean, I can't say he's not a Hall of Famer. He's one of my top 5 wide receivers I've ever seen in my lifetime. If you want to check that, make sure you subscribe to this channel and check out the video of my top 5 wide receivers of all time, running backs and quarterbacks as well in the NFL. But back to Matthew Stafford. Is he a guy that can be a game changer for a handful of franchises? We'll just say half of the teams in this league would certainly take a flyer on Matthew Stafford. You put him with a decent offensive line, if not a great offensive line, aka Indianapolis. You could also put him to New England. Granted, you might not want to hear that, but New England could certainly take a flyer on Stafford after what happened last season. The 49ers, there's been talk about them dropping Jimmy Garoppolo. Do I agree with that? To a point. Garoppolo, if he's healthy, I think is a very good quarterback. Is he borderline great? Certainly. He took a team to the Super Bowl. You can't knock him for that. He did not have a terrible season when they got to the Super Bowl. When he's not healthy, the team is playing drastically different. So that kind of goes in Garoppolo's favor of why he's a good quarterback at this point. But would they take a chance on Stafford? Yes. My opinion, yes. You would have to take a chance on that. Any team would, unless you're completely settled at the position, like Green Bay, like Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and the other team that went to the AFC Championship game, Buffalo. Excuse me. My mind's going blank there for a second. But Matthew Stafford, he has the stats to back it up. He has the longevity too. He's a tough guy. He plays for the Detroit Lions. He's getting banged up every single year. Chances of making the playoffs are slim to none almost every year. But he's proven it, in my opinion, that he is a reliable quarterback. Certainly, you got to take a flyer on him. And then the other one, Deshaun Watson. He has publicly now requested a trade from the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are not a terrible franchise like the Detroit Lions are in most recent history. Houston hasn't been around as long enough as the Detroit Lions have, and neither has Deshaun Watson from his career perspective. Played 4 full seasons. He did have his best season this last year, throwing for over 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. 4 total seasons in the NFL, he's thrown for over 14,000 yards, 104 touchdowns to only 38 interceptions. He does have 2 playoff appearances. He does have a playoff victory last year, beating the Buffalo Bills in the wildcard game before, we all know the inevitable, lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round of the playoffs with Bill O'Brien at the helm. As dysfunction goes, recent dysfunction, the Houston Texans are a fairly dysfunctional franchise at the moment from an outsider's perspective. Overall, since the franchise has been created as an expansion team, it has been one of the most stable franchises in the league. You can't argue with that. Playoff appearances have been fairly consistent, even with Bill O'Brien as the head coach. They have been contenders pretty much year in and year out before Deshaun Watson came aboard. Now that Deshaun Watson has come aboard, the one thing I will agree from his perspective, at least what's being revealed publicly, is that he wanted input and he wanted to be consulted with picking a general manager and a head coach. If it turns out the ownership, not Bob McNair, who has passed away, with the family, the son Cal McNair, if you promised to consult with the quarterback and then you reneged on the promise, of course Watson's going to be pissed. So in that sentiment, I agree with what's happening with the relationship here. But if you're making the argument to me that Deshaun Watson wants to get out of this dysfunctional franchise, I'm sad to say that I disagree with the fact that you're calling it dysfunctional. Certainly recent history shows with Bill O'Brien's front office moves, be it trading DeAndre Hopkins is the biggest example, that is the reason for the dysfunction at this time, not the grand scheme of things. Well before Deshaun Watson came aboard, it was a fairly stable franchise. Playoff appearances, didn't get a lot of victories, but with Watson at the helm, they did get 1 victory. And if you're Houston, if you're going to trade this guy, you're going to ask a king's ransom, obviously. He did sign a contract extension in September. A lot of people are asking, is this going to be the sign of the times with NFL players, specifically quarterbacks, requesting trades and this and that? Him having a no-trade clause with that extension. I'm not going to go that far into the genie bottle and try to predict anything that's going to happen with the future of the NFL with quarterbacks. But I will say right now, if all but say 5 teams in the NFL don't at least make a phone call to the Houston Texans to inquire about Deshaun Watson, to gauge the interest if they actually are thinking about doing it, then you're not doing your job. That's all I'll say about that. So with the 2 options you have right now with the quarterback carousel, there's many more after these 2, but these are the 2 prime examples of it. Deshaun Watson, Matthew Stafford. I have my, you could say, fan affair with Deshaun Watson, and he proved to me how good of a quarterback he can be with his play at Clemson, winning that national title against Alabama. Great game. If you haven't watched it, try to watch some highlights or watch the replay if you can. But Deshaun Watson proved it to me from that game. He is a top-tier quarterback no matter what, no matter where he plays. I would go after him, but are you willing to give up your entire future to do it? That remains to be seen. Matthew Stafford, I wouldn't give up my future for him, but I definitely would, mortgage off some 2nd and 3rd round picks, to say the least. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell below to get notified when all the latest videos are posted on this channel at YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. And also go to westthesportsguy.com for all the social media links. Bookmark that site for weekly recaps, previews. We also got the Super Bowl preview coming up next week. Big Super Bowl show themed for you next episode 102 on this channel. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.